You know what's strange? Some people don't buy the bigger house because they love the house. They don't buy the luxury watch because they care that much about the watch. They don't buy the car, the second property, the investment piece, or the designer anything because those things truly make them happy. They buy them because of the feeling they're trying to escape. The feeling of being behind, the feeling of being ordinary, the feeling that if they stop proving themselves, even for a second, people might look right through them. And that's the part nobody says out loud, because on the surface, it looks like success, it looks like taste, it looks like ambition, it looks like someone winning at life. But underneath that polished image, there's often something much more human going on. Fear, comparison, shame, and a quiet hunger to be seen. Stay with me, because once you see what status buying is really about, you stop judging people for it, and you start understanding how many of us are doing some version of the same thing. Let's start with the obvious truth. Human beings have always cared about status. We care where we stand. We care how we're seen. We care whether people respect us, admire us, envy us, or dismiss us. That isn't modern. That isn't shallow. That's ancient. Because for most of human history, your place in the group changed everything. It affected safety, it affected opportunity, it affected whether people listened when you spoke. So even now, in a world of credit cards, Instagram stories, and luxury real estate tours, part of the human mind still treats status like survival.
That's why certain purchases don't feel like purchases. They feel like protection. The right car doesn't just say, "I like this car," it says, "I matter." The expensive apartment doesn't just say, "I prefer this neighborhood," it says, "I'm not one of the people who got left behind." The luxury watch doesn't just tell time, it tells a story. A story that says, "Look at me, I made it, I belong in the room." And for a moment, that story works. That's what makes status buying so powerful. It gives instant emotional relief. Not peace, relief. There's a difference. Peace is quiet, it lasts. Relief is loud, it fades. And a lot of people spend years confusing the second one for the first. Because the truth is, many status purchases are not really about pleasure, they're about pain. They're what people reach for when something inside them feels too small, too invisible, too uncertain. Maybe they grew up feeling less than. Maybe they were the kid who got overlooked. Maybe they watched someone else get chosen, praised, admired, and a part of them decided, one day I'll never be ignored again.
Maybe they built an entire adult identity around being impressive because being loved never felt secure enough. So now they buy proof. Proof that they're valuable, proof that they're desirable, proof that their life means something. And the heartbreaking part is they often don't even realize that's what they're doing. They'll say it's a smart move, a reward, a symbol of hard work, an asset, a lifestyle choice. And sometimes, sure, it is. But sometimes it's also armor, a beautiful kind of armor, a socially accepted kind of armor, the kind people clap for. That's why this behavior is so easy to miss. If someone drinks too much, people worry. If someone works too much, people admire them. If someone shops to numb themselves, it might look irresponsible. But if someone buys a prestige item and calls it success, society often rewards the behavior instead of questioning it. So the cycle continues. They feel unsure, therefore they buy something that makes them feel bigger. But the feeling fades, therefore they need the next symbol. They get the symbol, but now they have to maintain the image. Therefore the pressure gets worse. And before they know it, they're no longer buying things to enjoy life. They're buying things to keep a story alive. A story that says they're important. A story that says they're safe. A story that they are ahead. Now here's where it gets more complicated. Status buying is rarely just about impressing strangers. Most of the time, it's about one of three audiences: people from your past, people in your present, or the version of yourself you're still trying to outrun. Sometimes the purchase is for the family that doubted you. Sometimes it's for the ex who underestimated you. Sometimes it's for your coworkers, your neighbors, your followers. And sometimes, most painfully, it's for the younger you who felt powerless and swore that one day nobody would ever look down on you again. That's why people can buy something expensive and still feel empty afterward. Because objects can change the image, they cannot heal the wound that created the image. A better car can change how people react to you. It cannot make you feel worthy when you're alone at night. A bigger home can make your life look elevated. It cannot silence the fear that somebody else is doing better. A luxury purchase can make insecurity look polished. It cannot turn insecurity into peace.
And this is where social media makes everything worse. Because now status isn't just something you live, it's something you perform. You don't just own the thing, you frame it, you post it, you package it, you wait for the reaction. And once your life becomes something you perform, your purchases stop being private decisions. They become emotional broadcasts. Look at me. Approve of me. Tell me I'm doing well. Tell me I'm not falling behind. That is exhausting. And the cruel part is, the more people build their identity around visible proof, the harder it becomes to rest. Because the image has to be fed, protected, updated, defended. A person can be deeply successful and still feel poor in the one place that matters most, inside. That's why some people with money still live with panic, because what they're chasing isn't comfort, it's emotional certainty. And emotional certainty is one of the few things money cannot permanently buy. Now, to be fair, not everyone who buys expensive things is broken. Not everyone who buys a nice house or a nice watch is insecure. Some people simply like beautiful things. Some people genuinely value craftsmanship, design, history, quality, or comfort. There is nothing wrong with enjoying what you can afford. The real question is not what you buy, it's what feeling you expect the purchase to give you. If you buy it because you enjoy it, that's one thing. If you buy it because you believe it will finally make you feel enough, that's something else entirely. And people can feel that difference, even if they never say it. You've probably met both kinds of wealthy people. One person walks into a room and you feel ease, nothing to prove, nothing forced. They may have beautiful things, but those things don't seem to be carrying their self-worth. The other person walks into the room wearing success like a costume that might fall apart if nobody notices it. That's the hidden tragedy of status buying. It often looks strongest from the outside when it's most fragile on the inside. And today, the game has become even more subtle. It's not always the loud logo anymore. Sometimes status is hidden in the school district, the organic food, the tasteful renovation, the wellness retreat, the curated lifestyle, the fact that you know what kind of success is currently fashionable. The symbols change, but the hunger underneath them often stays the same. The need to signal, I belong above the line, not below it. And research keeps pointing in the same uncomfortable direction. When people feel more social pressure, more inequality, or more uncertainty about where they stand, they become more likely to chase status through what they buy. In simple terms, the less secure people feel inside a social world, the more tempting it becomes to wear security on the outside. And that might be the deepest truth in this whole conversation. A lot of status buying is not greed. It's fear in nice packaging. Fear of disappearing, fear of not being respected, fear of being average in a world that treats average like failure. Fear that without visible proof, nobody will believe your life has value. So what do people do? They buy symbols. They buy distance from shame. They buy a temporary sense of arrival. But temporary is the key word, because if your self-worth depends on staying impressive, you never get to arrive. You only get to keep performing, and that is a miserable way to live. In fact, broader research on materialism keeps finding the same pattern. When people put too much of their identity into money, image, and possessions, well-being tends to suffer. Not always instantly, not always dramatically, but quietly, over time. Because a life built around being admired is often a life built too far away from what actually makes a person feel connected, calm, and whole. So what's the alternative? Not poverty, not pretending money doesn't matter, not shaming ambition. The alternative is honesty. Honesty about why you want what you want. Honesty about whether you love the thing or the reaction it creates. Honesty about whether you're building a life or building a performance. Because once you can tell the difference, something changes. You stop asking, will this impress people? And you start asking, will this make my life feel more like mine? That question can save people years, maybe even decades. Because the people who eventually break out of status buying usually realize one thing: respect that has to be purchased never feels secure. Worth that depends on display never feels real. And a life spent proving yourself is a life spent asking strangers to settle an argument that started inside you. So if this topic hit a nerve, maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it means you're starting to see the difference between buying from joy and buying from hunger, between enjoying success and needing it to heal you, between having nice things and asking nice things to tell you who you are. And once you see that, you can't really unsee it. Because maybe the real flex was never owning the symbol. Maybe the real flex was reaching a point where you no longer needed one.